the official liturgy reading actually picks up right in the middle of St. Paul's thought. I'm going to read the before and after, the entire passage to you, and I know that you're going to benefit a great deal from that. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. For you yourselves know, brothers, that our reception among you was not without effect. Rather, after we had suffered and been insolently treated, as you know, in Philippi, we drew courage through our God to speak to you the gospel of God with much struggle. Our exhortation was not from delusion or impure motives, nor did it work through deception. But as we were judged worthy by God to be entrusted with the gospel, that is how we speak, not as trying to please human beings, but rather God, who judges our hearts. Nor indeed did we ever appear with flattering speech, as you know, or with a pretext for greed. God is witness. Nor did we seek praise from human beings, either from you or from others. Although we were able to impose our weight as apostles of Christ, instead we were gentle among you, as a nursing mother cares for her children. With such affection for you, we were determined to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our very selves as well. So dearly beloved had you become to us. You recall, brothers, our toil and drudgery, working night and day, in order not to burden any of you. We proclaimed to you the gospel of God. You are witnesses, and so is God, how devoutly and justly and blamelessly we behaved toward you believers. As you know, we treated each one of you as a father treats his children, exhorting and encouraging and insisting that you conduct yourselves as worthy of the God who calls you into his kingdom and glory. So you see, we catch St. Paul just as he's beginning the sweetest thought, but also kind of thought-provoking thought about how he was gentle, or some translations will actually translate this as infants. First off, recall the theme of fatherhood. God calls himself Israel's father in Malachi in the first reading, and the religious leader St. Paul also had a special task, a special share in God's fatherhood, that he does with such great gentleness that he says, as a nursing mother cares for her children. Again, another translation, backed up by the Council of Trent, actually made this statement part of the formation of priests, although it had this translation. St. Paul is saying that he became like an infant among the Thessalonians. So likewise, the priest must humble himself so much that he becomes like an insignificant infant. Also, there can be a link here with what Jesus said about how the greatest in the kingdom are those who make themselves to imitate the correct spiritual virtues of little children. Meaning that little children have the best mindset and heart set because they're focused on the joy, the peace, and the beauty from God, and also the simple pleasures of life, and what God can do in our lives to provide us with joy and peace and the praise that comes from Him rather than the praise that from our audience should also be what priests and other ministers are focused on, as well as the beauty of what God does in other people's lives. One of the most beautiful things about the Catholic priesthood here today is how it teaches men to grasp sinners to their breasts with great empathy and patience, especially in counseling, in spiritual direction, and most commonly in the sacrament of reconciliation/penance. One Catholic professor wrote in the Catholic Commentary on Sacred Scripture that his seminary students are typically puzzled and even a little put off by how St. Paul uses this maternal image in 1 Thessalonians. Aren't they supposed to be spiritual fathers? Why is Paul talking about mothers? But doesn't it ring true? I know it's true for me, and I think it's true for many people, that we have something to confess sometimes, or something that's really bothering us, or a particular crisis, and we're more inclined to come to our mother than our father. I don't think that needs much explanation, so that you can understand what situations we're talking about. Still, for various reasons, even though the Father in heaven loves us so intimately and so personally, it's just easier to come to our earthly mothers. And perhaps we fear Father will be disappointed, punish or judge us, or simply get angry. But if a priest is to represent God the Father, actually you will have to take on this maternal element as well. You have to work even harder to find this gentleness when you're working one-on-one with people, precisely because of the fact that it is harder for you. And it's that fact that it is harder for you to represent that dimension of God's love that makes it so much more beautiful and important for priests to exercise this and succeed in it. Now, I know there are going to be some people who think that this is just a shallow sentimentality or a sentimental person's perspective, but trust me, it's anything but. The priest has to represent both God the Father and the Church, which is our mother, and this is a perspective that's often hard to integrate, but this is so essential. As one holy person once said, priests must be like lambs in the confessionals and lions in the pulpit.